તાજા સમાચાર તમારી ભાષામાં મેળવવા માટે ડાઉનલોડ કરો ગુજરાતી મિડડેની એપ.
Are you bullish, bearish on India's future?
Oh, I'm certainly bullish. Everyone knows that in vaccines, India's the world's leader. So we're investing with our partners here to come up with lots of new vaccines. This idea of digital connections that starts with Aadhaar and the bank accounts that you manage digitally, that's flourishing. Indian leadership is something other countries should benefit from. So going back to the G20, India stated its desire to help others.
Thank you very much for speaking with ANI, Mr. Gates. You seem to be having quite a visit. You met with Chaiwala and had tea. I saw that, and you're quite the social media sensation ever since, right? But that leads me to my next question. You are aware that Prime Minister Modi had humble origins as a chaiwala, as a tea seller when he was a young lad. So the term chaiwala is associated with upward mobility now in this country. My question to you would be that, what is your opinion about Mr. Modi's vision for India? You've been to India several times. Your foundation has been working here for several years. So the India of today and say the India of 10 or 15 years back, what is your view about that? What is your view about Mr. Modi's vision for India?
Well, I think the strength of India today, which in terms of economic growth and innovation, is very exciting. That's why companies like Microsoft has 25,000 people here that do absolutely amazing work. That developed over 25 years, and so a foundation was laid of educating people, and now that's paying off. It's nice to see you've got a government where some of the political competition is I'll run the health system better than they do. No, I'll make the schools better than they do. And so, I think democracy, it's a magic system, when it works well, that it's not just my group deserves a turn, but rather, my group will grow the pie for everyone. Improve the economy, improve health, improve education. And so the entire time I've been coming here, every time it's like, wow, Indian innovation is at a much higher level. And the health statistics, they're being honest about, okay, this is where we are, this is what's improved. If the foundation has some way of helping out, they're great to partner with.
After your last meeting with Mr. Modi, and you said, and I quote, "We talked about India's incredible progress and how Indian innovation can benefit the world." You've been investing and working in India for several years. Are you bullish, bearish on India's future?
Oh, I'm certainly bullish. The rate of improvement in a lot of the key areas is very, very strong. Everyone knows that in vaccines, India's the world's leader. So we're investing with our partners here to come up with lots of new vaccines. A diagnostics industry has come out of some of the work in the pandemic. So we're partnering there as well. This idea of digital connections that starts with Aadhaar and the bank accounts that you manage digitally, that's flourishing, and so we see in agriculture now they're registering the farmers and giving them advance notice. And so that Indian leadership is something other countries should benefit from. So going back to the G20, India stated its desire to help others, and we're a partner with India. In fact, speaking with the External Affairs Minister today about what countries could we accelerate, they are getting some of these benefits that have been so incredible here in India.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned vaccines. So I'm going to come to these conspiracy theories which revolve around you. And the reason I'm saying that, Mr. Gates, is because you have been investing in India and you plan to invest more. especially towards poverty alleviation, gender justice, and things like that. So it's better to lift the veil of these conspiracies that come around you to have a more trusting population. So the question I have is regarding some of your statements about vaccines. The disinformation, misinformation, whatever you may term it, is still around about the patents issue. What did you say and what did you mean then?
I'm not sure what you're referring to. In the case of COVID vaccines,
Yes, COVID vaccine.
the AstraZeneca vaccine
Yes.
was available to any vaccine manufacturer. And in fact, it's very impressive that we helped fund Serum with $300 million. They did many things, but they took the AstraZeneca and got it into production very, very quickly. But that AstraZeneca vaccine was available to any manufacturer, and as long as it was sold at a low price, there was no fee involved whatsoever. And so that really was the pharmaceutical industry, both the West and India working together in an exemplary way.
Right. You've long been a proponent about population control and how that is necessary for poverty alleviation and for growth, for development. Tell us the work that your foundation does with regard to gender justice, gender health, and poverty alleviation.
Well, the word population control is not something that we're connected with in any way. We do think that women who want family planning tools, they should be available. And so our work is just when there's that demand, how do you make it lower cost? How do you make it more convenient? How do you reduce the side effects? And so there's been great progress in helping women who want to use those tools have them available.
So you don't think that those are connected? Population control, lower birth rate, and development and gender justice, more rights for women, women's health?
Well, women should be able to choose, do they want to have a lot of children or very few children? It turns out as countries get rich, on average, women choose to have less children. They enter the workforce more, they put more attention per child, but those are completely voluntary decisions that, it's great. They should have as many as they want or as few as they want.
You said before that India has, and I quote, India has a deep understanding of the problems and great capacity to solve them. What are some of these examples of capacity that you have encountered in your work in India and the capacity to resolve these issues?
Well, a great example would be that since we've been working with India, they've adopted a lot of new vaccines, and they've done a great job getting them out to all the kids in the country. So under 5 mortality is a third of what it was at the turn of the century, which was when we first starting to work here. So, 1/3 as many children die before the age of 5. And the work on vaccines is a big, big part of why India's seen that improvement.
A question I've always wanted to ask, and I'm glad I have the opportunity today. At 32, the world's youngest billionaire, and as a granddad, you start giving away your wealth. Why are you giving away your wealth?
Well, I'll let my kids have some money so that they're comfortable, but I don't need the money for my own spending, and I think having a limited amount be inherited means that the rest of it's available to give back to society and try to improve things as much as possible. I'm very lucky that Microsoft was so successful. It generated gigantic wealth, and I was able to find things like vaccines or malaria or malnutrition that would not be solved without philanthropy. That is, people who are malnourished, it's not a big enough market that, companies were responding to that. And so, through partnerships with governments, I see a path to really eliminate a lot of these awful problems.
At what point in your life did you feel that making money, well, being wealthy, is not holding that much significance as it did?
Well, I started, I was in a upper middle class family, so I've never, been in what you'd call tough circumstances. My parents sent me to a great private school. When I dropped out of Harvard, I could have gone back at any time. As soon as Microsoft was successful, I wasn't going to spend that money because I was, working all the time, and that was my big focus. So I always knew that I would have to learn how to be a philanthropist. I didn't really figure it out until the year 2000, and that's when, I created the Gates Foundation, and it became the largest in the world.
Since we are talking about Microsoft, let me get to the bit about artificial intelligence. It's the great disruptor, and there is talk about how people will lose their jobs, and there is scope of that happening in India too. Do you think that India's ready for the next big idea as far as artificial intelligence is concerned? Will it have an India pin code, do you think?
Well, there's a lot of fantastic AI work going on in this country. You have innovators like Nananil and Connie who's taking all that digital work and saying, okay, how does AI make that even better? You have groups like Wadhwani, you have the IIT groups that are very state-of-the-art. India, there will be a lot of fantastic leadership work in AI here in India. And when it's helping the poorest in areas like health and agriculture, our foundation will be proud to help shape that and support it.
Let me come back to the foundation. Warren Buffett is one of the largest contributors to your foundation. Tell us a little bit about your relationship with him. It's almost 25 years since the giving pledge that you both took. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I've been friends with Warren for a long time, over 30 years. And we really never had much overlap in our businesses. He's an investor, I'm a technologist. But we had a very similar view of the world. We loved talking to each other. I talk to Warren many times a month, about all the different things going on. And he did decide at one point, although it was a complete surprise to me, to funnel some of his generosity through the Gates Foundation. So that's allowed us to be even more ambitious. But our friendship is basically independent of that.
Do you talk about India at all?
He has one of his great people, Ajit Jain. He gives full credit for a lot of the success of Berkshire. And so I've gotten to be friends with Ajit as well, who's just an amazing person. Warren hasn't been to India a lot. And so he wouldn't claim, any deep knowledge. But as we talk about good things going on in the world, the growth of the Indian economy is definitely a real positive.
What are the plans ahead for the foundation, the long-term plans regarding India?
Well, we do more in India than any country in the world. We're proving out here in India things like how do we finally solve malnutrition. We do some work in agriculture. We do some work in sanitation. We're pretty broad here, and we feel great about the partnerships we have. And so it's, we have very ambitious goals that will benefit not only India, but the entire world.
And finally, last question, how has your work with the Gates Foundation influenced your perspective about global health and development?
Well, in the year 2000, I was just a student, and I was amazed that the needs of the poorest were so ignored. Diseases like malaria or conditions like malnutrition were just so underinvested in. And the market doesn't drive dollars towards those problems because they're the problems of the poorest. And so, I was glad that I found philanthropic causes where I could take my skill of organizing scientists and making big bets and building partnerships and have impact. And it's worked out better than I ever expected it would. The world up until the pandemic, the greatest improvement in human health actually came from the year 2000 to the start of the pandemic, and our foundation and partners participated in something that went incredibly well. Now, since the pandemic, things are off track. We have a lot of instability in the world, so we need to work hard to get back on that the rate of improvement that we had since the turn of the century.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gates.
Thank
All the
you.
best. All the best to you.
સબસ્ક્રાઇબ કરો ગુજરાતી મિડ ડે. બેલ આઇકોન પર ક્લિક કરીને મેળવો તમામ વિડીયોના ડાયરેક્ટ નોટિફિકેશન.